We're on to the Zoom room again. Nice to see you back, Jackie, Sally, and Susie. So we're just talking about that that session, that talk that we looked at yesterday with Steve Jobs, and I was talking about the finite versus the infinite game, and you know how different companies have different approaches. So I'll just repeat that because I think it could be quite useful. So there's a guy called Simon Sinek who's a well-known motivational business speaker. He speaks for people like Google and Apple and Microsoft. So he'd been at the Apple conference and he'd been at the Microsoft conference, and he said the difference was quite marked. He said Microsoft spend most of their time talking about how they're going to beat Apple. And at the Apple conference, they didn't even mention their competition. They spoke about how they were going to create better products, how they were going to add more value to their customers. And so then at the end of the conference, he's catching a taxi with one of the Apple executives, and he decides he's going to stir the pot a bit. So he says to the guy, well, I've just got this latest Microsoft, whatever it was, Gizmo. See, we don't even know the name because it never really featured, did it? But it was apparently really good. It was a competitor to the iPod. He said it's really a beautiful piece of technology. It's so much better than the iPod. And he wanted to see how the guy reacted. And all the executive said, I mean, this was like senior executive employee number 54 type thing at Apple. And he just said, I have no doubt. And that was the end of the conversation. And he said, so the contrast, whereas a Microsoft guy would have got all defensive and, no, actually we are better. So I have no doubt, because they're not playing a finite game. They're not playing to win on each product. They're playing to be, overall to up their game. Just a totally different mindset. So that's a good example of the difference between the finite and the infinite game. And how that will directly affect behavior. If you play a finite game, then your thinking becomes narrow, contracted, focused on winning, focused on beating the competition, focused on your next quarterly results, share prices, everything in form. And you lose touch with the values, the internal domain we talked about, that really create the value in the first place. And it happens all the time. Companies do this all the time, and they pay the price. So I'll give you a couple of other examples of companies that have really just completely missed the boat, and they played a very finite, limited game rather than the infinite game. So you've probably heard of Kodak. You remember they were they were the world's leading camera company, photography company. When we grew up, before digital photography. And you probably don't know, though, that they invented digital photography. One of the employees in 1975 kind of came across this, invented it, whatever. And he went to the executives and said, look, this is what I've got. What do you think? I think we should start making this stuff. And they shut it down. They said, no, we don't want this because it's going to hurt our film sales. So talk about a finite game.
Yeah, how well did that go?
Not very well at all, as you know.
Exactly.
Because 10 years later, everyone caught up, and you got people producing digital cameras, and they were left behind. Because they played a finite game. Their mindset was, we want to maximize film sales rather than, hang on, what's our mission here? Our mission is to bring photography to people in a usable, accessible way that improves their life, that brings memories to life change, whatever, something along those lines. So it's not about the form of it. The film is just the form of it. It's actually about what we do as a company. I mean, it seems so obvious, doesn't it? I mean, that's just like, hang on, how could they miss that? But they did. And as a result, the company died a death because they just didn't have a vision beyond the finite game. So that's why I say this, this training, mind training, in the Course in Miracles is so valuable because it trains you to do the infinite game.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, someone's at the door. Let me just pause this for a moment. I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, that's the only thing I was gonna say. I've got a cup, thank you.
Did you enjoy your session yesterday?
Yeah, it's really good. Very, very
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I found it to be very good yesterday. Mind you, they all are. Every time you come on, there's something.
Sorry about that. It's an Amazon delivery arriving. Okay. So
played the long game. But
so
yeah,
you
very
know,
interesting what you're saying.
and it's unfortunately a kind of training that doesn't happen in business schools, I don't think, very much, because they're all training to do the finite game. I mean, I'll give you another example. I was reading, I think it was the guy who wrote the Maverick. What was his name? Ricardo Semler. I was reading him, and he was talking about what they're training at business schools, and he said he went and saw one graduate, MBA graduate from Harvard or something like this, and the guy had done a decision tree, because that's the way they teach you to make decisions, these decision trees, and he'd done a decision tree for the different companies he was going to apply for. And so he'd worked it all out, and then based on this really complicated thing, he chose one, and 9 months later they went bankrupt.
Oh God.
Because that you cannot do it rationally. You have to go on intuition and gut feel, which every really good anyone who's accomplished anything in any field, but in business as well especially, knows it's gut feel. You go on like what your intuition says, and then afterwards the rationality and the reason will show you, like you connect the dots backwards, not forwards. But there's something that just tells you, and the good ones know that, and they go with that. And the bad ones go, no, we'll just focus on what we can see and perceive with our physical senses, and we can reason out. And then from the perspective of Kodak in 1975, they probably went, well, yes, our film cells are doing really well, and we don't see any problem with this, and this will damage them, and there's no, they can't see beyond just the next quarter or the next year or two's financial results, because that's the way they've trained their mind.
Well, and of course, I said yesterday I had this 6-year divorce, and my ex is all, he didn't get to do an MBA, but he's very much business trained, ex-consultant, a lawyer, all that mindset, and it's about winning every point. And in winning every point, it's ended up costing a fortune, gone on forever. But it's that is playing the finite game rather than actually. Whereas I've tried to say, God, we've got the same children, let's give it to the kids, and that's the long game. Yeah.
You can't. How do you win at relationships, really? I mean, how do you win at life? I mean, it's an infinite game. It's a ridiculous idea.
Yes,
I won at life. What does that actually mean?
Well, you end up getting on well, and you get stressed, and
but things change, things go up and down. So there's no finite game. It's just you realize this is an infinite game, and all you can do is stay in infinite awareness, stay in an awareness that is timeless, rather than rooting yourself into false consciousness that's very finite and very limited.
It comes back to the trust that we were talking about yesterday, because if you come at relationships or the separation of a relationship from a place of fear and lack, then just not going to produce the same results that trust will in the long run. So I got dragged into it as well. Got dragged into that mindset. It must be something. But then you see, well, actually, what was that all about? All that time I could have been doing something creative, building something, instead of defending this stuff. But there we are. But it's the same principle.
It's a lesson, because it teaches you something, doesn't it? By going into that and seeing that it really doesn't work, you can learn and not repeat the mistake. So it's
And
all,
release a lot of stuff, release all that anger and rage and everything else that came up. It all needs to go, doesn't it? So,
exactly. So yeah, all good. Whatever you needed to do, you needed to do. You could say, well, I should have been more enlightened and I should have known better. But learning is, we need to learn because we don't know better. It's kind of a paradox, isn't it? We need to learn that the way we're thinking isn't true and right and correct.
yeah. Well, I think that what you're saying
That's
is
the
about
lesson.
Steve Jobs having the load lightened by getting fired from Apple and still coming back and doing great stuff eventually when the time is right. That's so inspiring, that story.
Yeah. And he acknowledged, connecting the dots backwards, that was exactly what was needed in order to stay creative, to stay hungry. He finishes his talk with, stay hungry, stay curious, or something. So
Yes.
it's like, okay, don't get complacent, don't get lazy and fat like these corporates do, and just go, okay, well, we'll just, keep doing the same thing, expecting that the world's not going to move on, because it will. And then you get caught napping because you haven't, your success becomes your greatest downfall because you can't let go of it. See,
Yes.
so the moment you achieve something, you should always go, well, I'm not really attached to it. I'm not attached to the form of it. I'm not attached to the money, none of that stuff. It's actually just this creative process that, okay, so where does the business go next? And that's interesting. That's inspiring. That keeps you interested. I think that was what kept Steve Jobs going. It was the creative process itself, but he didn't really care about the money and what was achieved and stock prices and all of that, which of course his board of directors did. He was like, no, it's the creative process that's inspiring and interesting. And of course that creative process brings in the spirit, which then adds the value that the corporate executives, in the scientific materialist paradigm can't see. That's where the value actually originates, because they've denied that internal domain of creativity and inspiration. They deny it. They don't even believe it exists. Which cuts it off. If you don't even believe it exists, how can you allow it through?
Absolutely.
So this this really needs to be taught in business schools, and to executives to go, like, there's another way of doing this, of being in business, and it works much better. You'll get much better results. You'll be far less stressed. You'll actually find happiness and enjoyment, and you don't have to go sit and meditate on a mountaintop all day. You can actually be in business, engage in the world, but do it very differently. And there are examples like Steve Jobs of the world, of people who've done that. And been very successful. He's one of the most successful entrepreneurs of his generation. But he just did it differently. He didn't have the same mindset as others, and as a result, he built the most valuable company in the world.
Yes, fantastic. That I obviously knew he was dying, and he decided what he wanted at his funeral, and he insisted that everybody be given a copy of Autobiography of a Yogi, and that was
Yeah, I didn't know that at his funeral.
Yeah. And it was the only book he had on his laptop, and he read it every year. So every year he read it through.
So that was his, spiritual guide. Obviously, it's like,
yeah.
So, and that's deep. I've read it. That's deep. There's mystic spirituality in it. Talking about God and Kriya Yoga and yoga. I mean, just transcending time and space. And so
probably Yogananda was he was the first to bring that to the West and brought it to California. So and probably a little earlier than Steve Jobs, but when he set up the Self-Realization Fellowship, that would have all been around Steve Jobs's time. So interesting.
Well, no, Yogananda was much earlier. He was in
earlier, wasn't he?
The 1920s. He came, and then I think he passed away in 1950 something.
That's right.
But he brought it to California, and it was there. So
Yes.
Steve Jobs would have known about it because it was there. And then he also went to India. So, but
Yes.
do you see how it works? So Yogananda was told to go and by his guru to go to California to do this. It's all part of the plan of the At-One-Minute. So he brings this teaching over, and then someone like Steve Jobs gets inspired, and he takes it to the world via the technology of Apple. And you see how this whole process works. And so ultimately, there's a spiritual master behind it, who was the great avatar Babaji, who went, okay,
Yes.
so I'm going to start this lineage. And then that went down the track to Yogananda. Yogananda was told to go to the US, all guided so that this teaching could become a world teaching.
Amazing.
And then you go, and Steve Jobs was just part of that. He was playing his part in it. And now we're talking about it. And you kind of go, okay, connect the dots, see how this is all working. There is a divine plan
Yes.
behind this, even in business, which is not seen as spiritual. Most people don't see it as a spiritual domain. It's seen as very materialistic. It's all about the money. But everything can be used by the spirit if you allow it to. And it just takes a person like Steve Jobs to really tap in and listen, and then go, okay, I'm going to take this into my work. He didn't divorce his work from his spirituality. He realized it had to be integrated. Otherwise, he wasn't living it. And he did that. And there were areas of his life that weren't perfect, and his relationships weren't great. And I think his daughter said he was a psychopath. But so he had some issues. He wasn't perfectly enlightened, but he clearly on a level he got it, and he was able to live it in his in his business, and that created the world's most valuable company. Which then you have to go, well, clearly this can work. There's a good demonstration of that, which should inspire hopefully a whole new generation of entrepreneurs to go, wow, he could do it. Why can't I do it? Let me learn these principles, apply them, and allow the same kind of miraculous energy to come through into my business as it did in Apple. Because he wasn't just, everyone's always just gifted. No, he just tapped in and he downloaded what's available to all of us. And he had certain talents and abilities the spirit could then use. But it was mostly it's a set of decisions you make, and that's coming from inspiration. So so that it can be duplicated by anyone if you just listen and are willing to do the work. So yeah, very, very inspiring, and these spiritual leaders are there in every area of life for us. So you can find examples everywhere. Simon Sinek, great. He's going into the corporate world and he's teaching them spiritual principles, but he's doing it in a way that's okay. Yeah, we can get that, and people will listen, because he talks about the infinite versus the finite game, and he uses these examples like Apple versus Microsoft and the Vietnam War, and then people kind of get it. But it's translating all of this into a language that your audience will then accept and listen to, and that's really the calling of all of us. So if you've got a thing for business or divorce counseling, whatever, you translate it into a form that people can accept and use. And then down the line, maybe they then get deeper into it. Okay, so what's actually behind this? And then they can dig into it and they can see, okay, they really, it all boils down to the truth. What's behind anything that's working is this ultimate non-dual truth, which we're studying directly in A Course in Miracles. Okay, so anyone else got any thoughts, comments, questions on yesterday? Or
No, it's a real good session yesterday. I really enjoyed it, although I missed the meditation. And then funny, because like we've been speaking about the ego and everything, and I listened to it 3 times yesterday and fell asleep all 3 times. I couldn't believe it.
What, Steve Jobs' talk?
No, your meditation that I missed yesterday.
Oh, right. Okay.
No, I like the Steve Jobs. I thought that was very inspirational, like you said.
Okay. Yeah, well, just observe it. That's how it goes. The ego can, one of its best defenses is to put you to sleep.
Mm.
So,
And I'm so mindful of it and thought, I'm not going to go sleep. And then I couldn't believe it was 3 times. I just tried and tried. But
yeah.
unless your voice is becoming that hypnotic.
Well, if you fall asleep, then that's what was meant to happen, I guess. And I mean, there's not that much difference between sleep and a deep meditation. So it's rest. If you need, so if you're falling asleep in your meditations, it probably means you need more sleep.
I think it can be really, it does get you thinking, doesn't it, on all levels, really, because it's some good stuff. So I guess your mind's up working overtime at things that I don't even know of. So yeah, you might be right there.
Listen to it when you're on a dog walk, Susie. Listen to the recording. Listen to the meditation when you're out on a dog walk. So you're doing something else at the same time, and then you can't go to sleep.
Yeah, I love to just go out with the dog, to be fair. I know what you're saying, and I try and listen to it before I go to bed, the meditation, but I do like to listen to something before I go to sleep. So maybe it was just one of those things. But it's nice to catch up on something that I've missed or something before I go to bed. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you find a way to work with it. So Sally likes walking with it, so it becomes a moving meditation. In the end, meditation is a state of mind. So when Paul in the Bible said, you should pray without ceasing, he didn't mean you should, continuously go, oh, please God, do this, or he meant you're in a meditative state of mind, continuously connected to your source. And that's the true prayer. True prayer is that letting go of any obstacles, as we've discussed, letting go of forgiving or letting go of any obstacles, and then just staying connected to source. That's true prayer. So everything becomes a meditation. Walking, you sitting quietly, that's what people normally think of as meditation, but your life is a moving meditation, the source flowing through you, and you're in a connected state all the time. That's what this mind training is about. Train you to enter that state and stay in that state consistently.
I always think it's about awareness and realization, but a deeper realization than I don't think of it as, because a lot of people, I mean, you can do it to relax, but I think sometimes the idea of what meditation is, it gets skewed, doesn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people think meditation is like, I'm sitting on and that, because that's traditionally what we think of. And you see these people sitting cross-legged and lotus or half lotus, and for a lot of people, that's no, that's not really for me. But just if you say to them, well, think of a time when you really felt relaxed, you really felt calm, you had an experience where you went flow, everything just kind of worked. Think about those times, and everyone's had those times. That's what we're talking about. It's that state of mind that makes your quality of life so much better. Life becomes so much happier, more enjoyable, more productive than if you're in a negative state of mind. So yeah, all good. How are we doing on time today? Has everyone got an hour, 2 hours? What's the
I've got no limitations.
No limits. Great. Playing the infinite game.
Well, I said yesterday I've got an hour. I'll say I've got 2 hours because I do have things I really have to do. But just not by a computer that works. So I deal with some of the other.
Okay. We'll try and finish it by 3, because I've also got some things I've got to do. So let me jump into it. I'm going to share my screen. Let's go into that. Okay. So if anyone can read the inspirational quote from the preface of A Course in Miracles. We don't often quote from that, but thought this quote was particularly good. So is that big enough? Shall I expand it a bit more?
I can see it. I can see it. Should I read it?
Yeah.
I get quite close to it.
Yeah.
The world we see merely reflects our own internal frame of reference, the dominant ideas, wishes, and emotions in our minds. Projection makes perception. Text introduction to chapter 21. We look inside first, decide the kind of world we want to see, and then project that world outside, making it the truth as we see it. We make it true by our interpretations of what it is we are seeing. If we're using perception to justify our own mistakes, our anger, our impulses to attack, our lack of love, in whatever form it may take, we will see a world of evil, destruction, malice, envy, and despair. All this we must learn to forgive, not because we are being good and charitable, but because what we are seeing is not true. Course in Miracles preface, what it says. That sums it up, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, great summary of what the course is all about in a paragraph.
Yeah, very good.
So any thoughts on that?
Well, it's what I've heard on many occasions, but I'm still not applying it. So I'm going to print it off and pin it somewhere very prominent.
It's our interpretation. This is the thing. So projection, perception. This is how it works. I'm going to just open up this diagram for you, which you probably haven't seen before, actually. So this will be new for you. But Sally, it's old hat, but kind of explains the metaphysics of this quite well.
Oh, wow.
So it's the descent into hell. It's actually based on a talk by Ken Wapnick. He talks about how we go down the ladder of separation. And so from a the theory is saying from one tiny mad idea of separation, you get this whole projection outwards, all of the stuff in the mind that is the consequence of separation, guilt and sin, and fear of attack. And anger and blame, and all this then gets projected out into this illusory world that the mind is now made up, and now we perceive it all as real. So we stuck then in a projection perception loop, and we do that so well that we've forgotten we're doing it. We project and we perceive simultaneously, and we think that that whole thing is real, and we've forgotten how we got here. We've forgotten how we did it. So we've come so far down the ladder of separation to the sense of being an individual body in a world that seems to be very unfair and cruel, where our victim identity is justified. But we've forgotten that actually we did all of this. We set it up, the desire for separation, and then all the inevitable consequences of it set us up for this. We've projected the world we see, we perceive, and then we perceive it as real, and we reinforce the projection through the perception, and so it goes, and we keep on in that cycle until something breaks it, and we're willing to get in between that projection, perception, or automatic reaction, and say, no, hang on, actually, maybe I can change my perception. Maybe I don't have to just react to the projections, and that's what forgiveness does. Interrupts that pattern, creates a gap between projection and perception, and says, well, actually, you can now choose your response consciously. And that really is the essence of all personal growth, spiritual growth, any modality. It's saying you can now choose how you respond by creating some space and a gap between the what you perceive and then how you react. So that's it's the essence of what we're studying. Create that gap. But what I like about the course is he's telling you exactly why, this exactly how the dynamic works of the ego in such a clear way that makes sense, that you can kind of then accept it. Because if you don't understand the metaphysics, then the ego's still got a hold, and you go, well, actually no, because what I'm seeing is reality. And then you can't forgive it. How do you forgive it if you think it's real? this is the point that the quote is making. You can't. So
we have that chart on an email or something, so we can print it off. And
yes, it's on. Did you get my email today?
Possibly. I haven't seen it, but
okay. Yeah, it went out about an hour ago.
I haven't looked at my emails.
Today. So just check, and if you didn't get it, check your spam folder, check your promotions folder, and all of that. Are you on Gmail, or can't remember? No, you use Hotmail. So just check it and then add it to your whitelist. I was going to send you some instructions, so I'll do that afterwards to make sure you get it. So in each email, it's there. If you go down here, this is down at let's just zoom out a bit. This is down in the daily schedule. So it's the second part of the email. You scroll down, there's a link there to it, ALG course manual. So you can click that link and it'll bring it up, and it's on page 19. Descent into Hell. So all the resources I refer to, usually they're available in the email. You just have to know where to find them. So okay, so let's go back to the teaching for today. Susie, if you can read paragraph 1 for us, today's quote.
Today's quote from the preface to the Course of Miracle text tells us exactly what the world is: a projection of our own dominant ideas, desires, and emotions, and why we should forgive or let go of it, not because we are so spiritual or enlightened, which can be just another false self-concept that causes more false projections and perceptions, but because nothing that you perceive outside of you is real.
So just pause it there. So that's the foundation for all of this. You're going to accept that or you're not. If it's not real, then to judge it and react to it and do what the ego wants you to do is insane. It's not even there. You're delusional. It's a hallucination, as Yeshua calls it. An illusion, a hallucination, a delusion, a dream, whatever you want to call it. And that's the basis for forgiveness. Not because, oh, well, I should be spiritual, so I should forgive, even though actually my mind's telling me this is real. That kind of forgiveness has never worked. You're faking it. This is a recognition deeply in your mind. Okay, yes, I understand that what I'm perceiving is not real. The entire world is just a figment of my imagination. So forgiveness is always justified because what I'm perceiving isn't real. That you have to understand the metaphysics in order to really forgive, and that's why he does spend a lot of time on the metaphysics in the course. Because when you understand it, you kind of get it, then you go, yeah, okay, I accept that. And even if I'm tempted, there's something deeper in you that goes, okay, but remember, it's just you're in a dream. None of this is real. But if you don't understand the metaphysics and you think the world is real, it's impossible to forgive. You won't be able to do it, which is why most people do find it impossible. They just can't. They can't do it. They can't fathom it. They go, I understand that there's this thing called forgiveness, but I have no idea how to do it. And so you need to study the metaphysics and start accepting in your mind that what you're perceiving with your senses isn't real, which is pretty radical stuff. I mean, this isn't for the faint-hearted, but that's where you have to go. And I've heard even great teachers like Eckhart. He says, "Oh, we don't have to go there." No, you do have to go there, because it's the only way you're going to forgive. You have to go to the metaphysics. Otherwise, your forgiveness isn't going to be justified. You're going to think it's kind of, well, I should do it because I'm so spiritual, but actually it doesn't really make sense to me because it's really happened. So this mind training is really to inculcate into you the metaphysics, that you really start to more than just believe, that what he's saying is true. There's a deeper knowing, and then forgiveness kind of is a natural response to that knowing. You just can't take things seriously anymore. And then it's not that hard. You just go, well, that's just another illusion. I can't buy into it. And that just takes all the emotional charge out of your reactions. And so, studying the metaphysics in this deep way that Yeshua is asking us to do through the course is essential, which is why he's given us such a large volume, saying, well, I know that this is going to be a difficult idea for you. So, we're going to look at this and relook at it and repeat it in many, many different ways and forms so that you can start to accept it. And your ego is highly resistant to the idea. It doesn't want you to believe this. So that, that's why, although it's very simple, the truth is actually can be stated like that in a simple quote. But to apply it is another matter. To actually live that way is why we do the mind training. Okay. So happy with number one, first paragraph, second paragraph. Sally, if you can do the honors for us.
While fundamentalist scientific materialists will scoff at this idea, honest scientists open to looking at the results of thousands of quantum and other experiments performed in different places around the world, without their perceptual bias towards making the external world real, as classical Newtonian physics demands, admit that the stream of knowledge is heading towards a non-mechanical reality. The universe begins to look more like a great thought than a great machine. Mind no longer appears to be an accidental intruder into the realm of matter. We ought rather hail it as the creator and governor of the realm of matter.
Yeah, a guy called James Jeans, who was a physicist. In 1930, he wrote that. So this is nearly 100 years old. And yet still, it hasn't really penetrated into mainstream scientific thought. He was one of the pioneers. Most scientists still hold to the Newtonian idea that there is some objective external reality, even though quantum physics has completely disproved that. These experiments have been done, many, many times. Things like the double slit experiment, and a guy like Rupert Sheldrake has done all kinds of experiments on mind, and proving that there's some kind of morphic field that disproves the idea that there's some kind of objective reality independent of us. And yet, we still have this really primitive. It's a primitive thought system, very primitive idea that somehow matter is real, and matter somehow has created consciousness. That's a bizarre thought. How can matter create consciousness? Because that's what you have to believe in, don't you? Okay, well, somehow this all came into being and without mind. So matter, it just doesn't make any sense. There must be a mind behind it, surely a creative force. So, the scientific materialists will say, well, consciousness is a product of the brain. I mean, that's just bizarre. And that's disproved by things like near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. Clearly not, because people can have consciousness and not be identified with the body at all. They can be floating away, and they can actually see their body, not be in the body at all. So clearly, it's not a product of the brain. The brain stops after someone dies. Within about 10-15 seconds, all electrical activity ceases in the brain, and yet then the person goes off and has a near-death experience for however long, half an hour sometimes, and they come back and they go, well, I described this whole experience that clearly didn't happen in the brain because the brain was not active. There were no electrical signals. So there's all this evidence to point to what James Jeans is saying, and yet people ignore it because it's that's why I said fundamentalist. It's a religion. Rupert Sheldrake's argument is this is a religion because it's not science. It's just a dogma. It's a belief that they choose to believe irrespective of the evidence, which kind of denies the whole scientific idea anyway. Science was supposed to be based on evidence, but it's become a religion. And he said this in one of his TED talks, and it got banned. Interesting, they banned it because they didn't like what he was saying. Which, there's just the same thing that's been going on for centuries. Oh, well, we don't like what the guy's saying, so we just ban him or censor him because he's denying the truth that we want to believe in. That's been going on forever. So they did the same thing, even though supposedly scientific inquiry is supposed to be open. Like, okay, well, let's really look at the results of experiments and then base a theory on that matches the the results. That's the whole methodology, but it's become a dogma. So if you want to read an article there, just to show you, I try and include these little links in there. You want to read an article, you can go diving into these links. You'll see there's a 7-page article on setting science free from materialism there, which explains exactly what scientific materialism is. And then, if you want to go diving into that, there's an article on James Jeans and the Mysterious Universe summary. So you can dive into these resources, and if you want to read the whole book, there it is. So you can maybe it's not. Sorry, I clicked the wrong one. There we go. Mysterious Universe. So you can read the whole thing if you should be so inclined. Most people won't have time, but the resources are all there if you want. Fascinating. This book is really, it was one of the best sellers of its time. It kind of popularized quantum thinking. In the 1930 it was published. So this stuff's nearly 100 years old. And it's just been a long lag time.
A good book for Christmas for a boy studying theoretical physics at uni, or would it blow him?
yeah, exactly. If you know someone who's interested, it's fascinating stuff. And he actually quotes in the book, he has the whole story of Plato's cave, allegory of Plato's cave in there.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see that philosophy and science, start to merge at the highest level.
Right.
Because Plato's cave is, all about the illusion and the self-concept. What Yeshua has done brilliantly is he said, well, look, this whole projection, perception mechanism you call the outside world is a result of a false self-concept. And that's what's behind it. So go to the self-concept, let that go, and then the perception mechanism, illusion, must disappear. And that's the way to freedom. Whereas most scientists, philosophers haven't made that connection. They don't connect the self-concept with the universe and the world that you live in. Somehow seems to be independent. And then it's a great mystery. I mean, you have titles like The Mysterious Universe. Well, it's not really mysterious when you understand it. It's actually quite simple. Okay, well, here we go. A thought of separation gave birth to it all. It's an illusion. The idea is false. Everything that follows from it is false. There's no mystery there. It's just a bunch of lies. It's a pack of lies. And so, Yeshua just demystifies it all. Because as long as there's a mystery, the ego's in business, isn't it? So, we don't quite know. So we appeal to mysteries we can't really understand that. And Yeshua's saying, no, you can absolutely, understand all of it. Again, I've heard teachers like Eckhart Tolle saying, oh, well, we can't understand the purpose of the universe. No, we can. Of course we can. That's the whole point. You're not enlightened unless you've understood what the purpose is, because that's your own purpose. There's only one purpose and one meaning. Purpose is meaning. And he's just giving it to us straight. It's not a palatable truth for most people. They don't want to know this. It's just like, okay, the whole thing's just a bad dream. You just invented it all. And it needs to be let go of because it will never work. So when you realize this, it's just so freeing because you can go, okay, I don't have to make this place work anymore. It's just realize the truth that it doesn't work. And a human life will never really work, and I'm never really going to get it right. So enough. Let me just give it up. Let me let it go and not be human anymore. That's the solution that he's proposing, rather than desperately trying to make this flawed construct work and never succeeding, because you never will. It was designed for pain and suffering and sickness and death, and to keep you away from from pure formless awareness of perfect love. So what else could you expect from it but that? So finally, we have someone who's telling it straight, which is very refreshing. Because most scientists, philosophers, teachers of consciousness, spiritual teachers, yogis, gurus, mystics, many of them are still enslaved in their own egos. So they can't see the truth. They don't want to see it because it's so radically deconstructive to the ego. I gotta let me go into this. Can you read that? It's probably a bit small. This is a quote from A Course in Miracles. Universal theology is impossible, but universal experience is not only possible but necessary. Is this experience towards which the course is directed? Okay, so it's an experience. And then the commentary is A Course in Miracles, one of the most powerful and profound spiritual paths in existence. It's completely unique in both content and presentation. While it clearly supports some of the other highly revered worldly paths designed to lead to awakening, it simultaneously utterly destroys some of mankind's most cherished assumptions regarding spirituality, psychology, and indeed the very nature of reality. So it's just, a lot of it just, no, that's not true. That's not true. Yeshua's saying none of it's true. Just go to the simple truth of pure formless awareness, as we call it, or perfect love. That's the only thing that is true. Everything else is not. So there's no compromise on that. Because if you compromise one bit, then you're in the illusion again, and you're justifying it. Okay, so let's continue. If the universe is all a great thought, projected by the mind. So I think if we can cycle back to Jackie. You can do that.
If the universe is all a great thought projected by the mind, which is what quantum physicists and cosmologists like James Jeans have been saying for over 100 years now, radical forgiveness, or in our alternative AOLG language, letting go, as Yeshua teaches it in A Course in Miracles, has a sound scientific foundation and will become your only option if you can only accept that the belief in separation, the mind that dreamt this universe up had in order to do this, is false.
So you just have to accept one idea. That's what I'm saying here. There's just one idea. If you can only accept that the belief in separation, the mind that dreamt this universe up had in order to do this, right? So it had to have a belief in order to do all of this. That's false. That idea is false. And if you accept that fundamental premise, which is the basis of all Yeshua's teachings, then everything you perceive in the seemingly external universe must also logically be false, because it's all based on a false idea. And so therefore your ability to forgive or let go ultimately depends on that faith. You must believe it or not. There's a lot of evidence to support the fact that it's false, but in the end it comes down to, well, do you accept it or not? If you don't accept it, then you can't forgive. And if you do accept it, then you can forgive or let go. It's as simple as that. So another way of saying it is, will you let go of your mental and emotional attachments to the people, things, events, and circumstances that seem to exist in this world? And that means you must have accepted the premise that they're not true. Right? That's any basis for letting them go. Or the alternative is, will you allow the ego's reactive thoughts and emotions, whatever that may be, the lacks of love in any form, fear, anger, attack thoughts, hatred, guilt, sin, jealousy, rage, and so on, that cover over or negate the truth that only pure formless awareness of perfect love is real, to dominate your mind? Will you allow those to dominate your mind and drown out the Holy Spirit's voice? Reminds you of the truth. Those are the only two options. And Yeshua saying it's very simple. Two choices, two options diametrically opposed. They don't agree with each other. They don't reconcile. Don't try and reconcile them. Just make a clear choice, and then your reality goes accordingly. So how, because a lot of people say, well, this is a bit abstract, you know, I believe the universe is based on a thought of separation. Well, that's a bit kind of abstract and theoretical, isn't it? But it becomes very practical when it comes down to your perception of the things, people, circumstances, and events in your life, because that's where that belief comes into operation. Do I believe it's real? Oh, yes, I do. Okay, now it's triggered a negative emotional reaction in me. I believe that's true. Now I have perception and I respond behaviorally according to the belief that it's real. So that's how I make that idea of separation true for me. And that's how it plays out in our lives. So it's actually very, very practical. It goes to the very core of how you perceive your life. And your perception of your life is your life. Or you can choose to interpret it from the perspective of oneness and say, no, none of this is true because only oneness is true. So I can let it go. And I don't have to think and feel these thoughts and emotions. And I can find just a state of pure formless awareness beyond that. And then from that state, now I make decisions and take actions, and my state has changed. So it's changed my thoughts, my words, my actions, my behavior, and my results. And so the metaphysics, you know, what seems to be a very abstract idea actually is intensely practical, because that simple idea of separation versus oneness determines everything in your life. How you're going to live your life, how you perceive your life, the thoughts, the words, the actions. It all comes down to, you know, which idea do you believe? And that's why it's so important. You spend so much time emphasizing oneness, saying, okay, well, let's look at the ego and expose its falsity so that you accept it. Because when you accept it, then forgiveness becomes automatic. It's like, yeah, I get it, of course. But you don't accept it, then forgiveness is impossible. And our difficulty with forgiveness is that we don't accept some fundamental premise that separation is false. Because it's mind-blowing. If separation is false, my entire life is false. The entire universe and world it's all false, and none of it's real, none of it's true, none of it actually deserves any of my mental and emotional energy. Whoa, okay, it's a bit radical, most people would say, but that's the way out. You know, it's you're going to go out completely, or you're going to stay locked in to this illusion. Those are the choices. Does that make sense? You see how practical it is. If you boil it down, you take the metaphysics in this diagram and you take it down all the way down the ladder to the personal identity, and then how that identity, the victim identity, will interact with the world. That's how the idea of separation translates into your life, to really run a river of misery through your life. It's going to profoundly affect your life. And the ego is going to do everything it possibly can to prevent you from realizing that. Because if you realize there's only one idea behind it all, you can end it and say, okay, then that idea's got to go. But if you don't even realize it and you continuously focused on the immediate things, like someone's attacked you, or someone's blaming you, or this has gone wrong, and you don't see that it's all a result of an idea of separation, then you stay in the problem, trying to fix the problem on the level of form, and never being able to transcend it and realize that there's really only one problem, which is that you have a false idea of separation that you believe in. And all of this is all of your problems are a result of that false idea, of that one mistaken idea. Because realizing that allows you to collapse the whole thing and be free. So what we're doing here with the forgiveness process, the reinterpretation process of the ego's dream by the Holy Spirit to awareness of oneness, is reinterpreting all of the ego's thoughts and emotions as they crop up in the dream. And that takes us up the ladder. You start transcending them, letting them go, leaving them behind, until you get to the one idea, and you go, wow, it's all just one idea. I get it. And I don't really believe that idea anymore. And then the ego will make its last stand and will fight desperately. But if you know the truth is true. You can't deny it anymore. And Sally, you had that realization the other day. Maybe you want to speak about it briefly. Do you want to share that experience?
There is.
you can't remember, you go like, oh, actually, I realize that I have believed in separation. I still do believe in separation, but you kind of got there and you went, oh, okay, that's it then. That's the one idea that there's still a belief in. But once you're conscious of it, you bring it into conscious awareness, you can then let it go.
Yeah, I think I've had so many aha moments since doing this work with you. I can't remember one from the other. They all just kind of meshed together now. It's like, yeah, it's just building on the last aha, isn't it? And it's all the one thought anyway. So I couldn't separate what happened then and what's happening now.
But eventually you'll get to that. Okay, it's just one idea. It's just a tiny mad idea. I don't need to believe it anymore. It's that simple. In any way, shape, or form, I don't need to believe this, and that's my ultimate freedom. And then radical forgiveness is completely justified in every instance. There would be no problem with it once you fully accept that the idea of separation is false. But it takes a lot of mind training to get there, because you've got all this stuff to wade through. The ego's laid it on thick, and it's all the covering over your true awareness, and you've got to work your way through that to get out of it. It's like wading through the crap. To reference to that movie Shawshank Redemption. How did he escape? He had to crawl down the sewer pipe through 100 meters of crap to get out. It's symbolic. It's like to attain his freedom, he had to go through the shit. And that's kind of what we have to do. Unfortunately, you've got to go through the guilt and the sin and the fear and all of your delusions to get beyond them. You work through them. And it's no good saying, oh, it's all an illusion, therefore I don't have to look at this stuff. That's not going to get you free. You have to look at it, experience it. It's not nice, it's not pleasant, it's often painful, and then release it, because otherwise it remains in your subconscious. So you got to go through it literally and get your hands dirty. Otherwise, metaphysical ghosting or spiritual bypassing is another word for it, would just be, oh, well, it's all illusion, so I can forget it all and not really actually dig into those emotions and really explore them and allow them to arise. And then you've actually just used the ego. Isn't that interesting how the ego can even use a spiritual principle like the truth to avoid its undoing? It'll just say, oh, well, it's all illusion, so I don't even need to think about it. But actually that's avoiding going into it, and the process is necessary to release it. Although it's not ultimately true, that is true, but there's a process to undoing it, and that process is what he's teaching us. That process is forgiveness.
So does the subconscious mind and changing the beliefs in the subconscious mind come in here? I mean, I do, so does it AIM, I do some of that, and I also do another process, Psych K, which I suppose you could say is like the happy dream. You replace the negative beliefs with what you prefer to see, so it's creating more supportive subconscious beliefs. The person who himself the originator who channeled it effectively, the process.
Just if you can speak more towards the microphone, because you're fading out.
Okay, so the person who brought this process through, ultimately it's only one problem that anyone has, and it's the illusion of separation. It's the is problem. So the separation illusion is there, but there's also this process of going through changing, releasing the stressful situations, releasing the stress in the body, and putting in more supportive ideas. And I'm trying to sort of reconcile those, because I suppose it's the process, isn't it? Taking people from the mess they're in on a gradual process, so they then go through a better state within the illusion before they.
Yeah, and Yeshua says, forgiveness isn't an illusion.
Forgiveness is an illusion.
Yeah, but it's the only illusion that's not going to breed more illusions. It's the illusion that's going to get you out of the illusion.
Right.
It's not really necessary in truth, because in truth, there's nothing to forgive.
Yes.
But while you're in the illusion, you need a process to overcome all of your false beliefs. So that's this process he calls forgiveness. I prefer letting go because it's more descriptive of what you're actually doing. You're letting go of thoughts and emotions that are blocking you, blocking your awareness of love's presence. But so you need a process within the illusion to overcome the illusion. Otherwise, you would be lost here forever. It's like, okay, well, it's not really necessary, but there's no process to realize that.
Yes.
You're like, well, okay, well, that's very helpful. I mean, he could just have ended the course, said nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists, herein lies the peace of God. Right, end off, that's it.
Yeah.
No more course. There we
Put
go.
that book on the shelf for 25
I've
years.
given the truth. But he knows, okay, that's the high level, that's the truth. But to actually understand that and really let go of our egos, that is going to take a lot of work. So he needs to give us a course, which is another illusion. In heaven, you don't need a course in miracles. Miracles don't even exist in heaven, but you need it in the illusion to help you transcend the illusion and get back home to heaven. So it's a necessary construct. Just don't get attached to the construct. Don't go, oh, the Course in Miracles is the truth. No, it's a pointer to the truth. That's all it is. It's a tool. It's very useful. But as he says, in the introduction, this course cannot teach you the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. But it can teach you to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. So he's framing. He says that the scope of it is we're dealing with the illusion here. But if you do this work, this will take you out of the illusion. You will transcend it. But I can't teach you that. That will come when you're ready. What I can teach you is how to change your mind, how to change your perception. So the process that he's taking us through is quite well summarized in this diagram, which you may or may not have seen. It's called the levels of mind. It's a diagram and a process that was given to David Hoffmeister, you're probably familiar with. Well-known Course in Miracles teacher. It was given directly by Yeshua, so it was like a download. He said, this is how this course works, and he framed it into a diagram, and then there's some questions which allow you to expose each level. So you talked about the subconscious mind, or maybe this will resolve it for you. So you've got these levels of mind. Perception is the start. It's like, well, I perceive whatever I'm thinking about. So I tell you what, why don't we just do this for you? We'll do this. So you're thinking about your divorce, I'm thinking about, and then you'll see exactly how it works. My messy divorce. So that's perception. Okay, so what am I perceiving? What's my life situation? So that's kind of the surface level of it. Then you go a little bit deeper. What do you feel? That's the emotional level. What do I feel?
Well, I mean, the emotions have changed massively. They changed massively just over the last weekend since I've been here. But
well, right now, what do you feel about it?
Right now, what do I feel about it?
And we want some upsetting emotions. So whatever's still there, that's lingering.
Frustration.
Frustrated.
Bit of sadness.
Sad.
I suppose if I look at it, some anger still. I mean, I've cleared a huge amount of anger, but there is still some there.
Yeah. Frustration is a form of anger, isn't it? It's a resistance. It's like.
If anything happens, and I mean, I've had a quiet few days, so nothing's really gone on. But if anything happens, then hatred can still come up.
Frustrated, sad, angry, hate. Anything else?
Yeah, disappointment about the wasted time, really, that, all the things I could have been doing, but it was obviously part of the process. Because I'm here doing
with
this.
Myself.
Yeah.
Oh.
I still don't know. I suppose feeling Well, there's been big feelings of being trapped and not being able to find a way out of this situation. In fact, Sally and I've talked about the Shawshank Redemption after you recommended that. And I feel like I haven't watched it recently, but what I remember, it's like you have to go through all that. You have to realize that nothing else works. Standing up for yourself doesn't work. All that stuff. And then, finally make your way to freedom. So, I don't quite know how to put that into a word, but yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a good selection of. I certainly have felt with more intensity.
So the emotion is the next level. So you have the mind. Okay, so what's the emotion? Then you go to thought. Right? What? Because I think that. What? Who's to blame? Your husband?
Yeah, my ex. That's not his name.
We won't name him, but we'll just put it on. My ex-husband is to blame, and/or because I'm afraid that something will happen in future.
The future fear now, I mean, there have been different ones, but I suppose the future fear is that my children, my sons will be affected, and my relationship with them will be affected.
My relationship with my children will be damaged, I think you probably want.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it'll be negative.
Has been damaged.
Okay, so that's a thought. Yeah? So you've gone from emotion, underlying that is thought, and now you've got belief. Okay, so these thoughts and feelings prove that I'm right that. And what's the core belief in lack that underlies this?
Yeah, I suppose it comes down to I'm powerless in this situation because he's a lawyer, he's a financial analyst, he's got all the qualifications. Give to the gap.
So I'm a victim, yeah? And
yeah.
powerless. I'm a victim and powerless. Anything else you want to add to that?
That I've been used for 25 years.
I'm a victim, powerless, and a mug for being used, something like that. Yeah. So then you get to the core belief. Yeah? So you see how you go through the levels.
Yeah.
And now you go, okay, so what I wanted and expected, or what I still want and expect is for, and this is the desired actions, situation, or event, but coming from the ego perspective. So what did you actually want through all of this? What's the underlying desire behind all of this?
Well, sitting here right now, I would say, to fully awaken. But
no, but that's your right mind's desire. You're talking about the ego's desire. What's the desire that's sponsoring all of this perception, emotion, thought, belief that we've just gone through?
To win. Maybe.
Okay, dig a bit deeper. Like the answer's there, really. What I want and expect is for what?
To be respected, to believe that the outcome is fair, to
be respected by my ex,
and all those, the judge, all the people who've been involved,
fairly treated. And anything else?
To feel that I haven't wasted a huge chunk of my life.
So that's how the ego is setting it up and saying, okay, so that's, in order for you to be happy and get out of all of this, this needs to happen. I need to be respected. I need to be fairly treated. And I need to then feel that I haven't wasted a huge part of my life. Is any of that actually happening?
No, I suppose there's an element of
No, because it's a setup, isn't it?
yeah.
It sets you up for that. And really all it's trying to do by projecting the desire outwards and saying something's got to change externally is it stops you from letting go of all of this.
Yeah.
And it keeps your core belief that you're a victim and powerless in place.
Yeah.
So there, you just had a demonstration of how you go through the levels of mind, and you go and you uncover the core belief, and you uncover the desire, right? The desire or prayer of the heart is at the core of it. So do you desire still to be a separate self and therefore a victim and powerless and a mug for being used? Or do you desire to be one self? The Christ that you are? That's the question.
Yeah.
Because depending on how you answer that question, your desire will determine your belief, your thought, your emotion, and your perception of the situation.
Yeah.
If you believe that you're one self, then that desire to be only who you are will collapse all of this. How can you be a victim and powerless and a mug for being used if you're the Christ who's beyond all of this?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I think my ex-husband is to blame. I'm afraid that my relationship, none of that matters.
Okay.
Your ex-husband is a figment of your imagination. Your relationship with your children is a special relationship that has no ultimate meaning.
Yes.
So why are you worried about it?
Yes.
So then how can you feel frustrated or sad or angry or hatred or trapped or disappointed with yourself when the self that you thought you were isn't even real? It's not true.
Yes.
And how can your messy divorce then affect you in any way, shape, or form if you're the Christ and you're one self and none of this is true or real? And then your perception changes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can just look at it all differently and not be affected by it one iota once you've really resolved this.
Yeah.
So that's what the forgiveness process does. It just works through, it takes you all the way down from perception, through emotion, through thought, through belief, to the fundamental desire of the ego, and then you change it. The prayer of the heart is, I want to be who I really am. I want to know the truth of who I am only. That's it. And now that desire will change the core belief about who you think you are. It'll change your thought related to the situation. It'll change your emotions, and it'll change your perception, and that ripples all the way up. And this is why this process is so effective, because you're going to the very core of the mind. What is your desire? What do you choose? Do you choose to be a separate self, or do you choose to be one self? That's the choice. And that's how it plays out in the situation.
Sounds like a complete no-brainer. Of course, I would choose to be oneself, but I don't have any sense of it. That's the thing. It doesn't feel real. It all sounds great and makes sense on one level, but on a practical day-to-day level, I am. I feel a separate self. That's the thing is.
Well, every time you feel a separate self and you feel this coming up, you take it through the process and you go to the core of the desire to be separate or to be oneself, and you change your mind. You say, no, I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to feel these thoughts, think these thoughts, feel these emotions. I choose to be oneself again. I choose to be whole and complete. Therefore, none of these thoughts and emotions have any place in my mind. So I choose to let them go.
Yes. Yeah.
And free myself from them. And you do it moment by moment as they show up. That's the ongoing practice. And you can use this process. You can use any of the lessons. It's all the same process. It's to take you down to the core of your true awareness and remind you that's true and the alternative is false. And root yourself into that true awareness, which then will change belief, thought, emotion, perception. If you keep doing that, changing your desire, belief, thought, emotion, perception, that's life-changing. Your perception will be changed, and you will no longer be the same person as you thought you were, because the person you thought you were was a false belief that was then had all these layers, the belief, thought, emotion, and perception stacked on top of it to reinforce it.
Mm.
So this is an incredibly powerful technology, really, for the mind. So like, okay, well, let's drill deep through this forgiveness process, get to the core, which is the desire of your, what do you choose? Do you choose to be one self, or do you choose to be a separate self? That's what it comes down to. Change it there, and then that's the miracle. And then your belief, thought, emotion, perception must change if you change your mind about who you are, which is how you see how the rubber meets the road. We're talking conceptually, the self-concept, projection, it can all be very abstract and metaphysical, but then how you apply it in your life is very practical, using this forgiveness process. Then it's like, well, yeah, actually this is absolutely practical, because perception, emotion, thought, belief, and my fundamental desire about who I think I am are fundamental to my life experience. That's what makes up my life experience.
So by connection to the oneself, you're talking about connection to the awareness of pure, I can't remember what you say, pure formless
awareness. Yeah.
Pure formless awareness. So with the process that I was talking about before, with changing the subconscious belief, so the desire point, you would change it to something that I suppose feels better in the illusion. So to be respected, fairly treated, and what have you.
Yeah, but you don't need any of that. You just need to accept who you are. You are that already. You don't need anyone to confirm that. So you turn it around and you say a simple statement like, I am love. Just say it. Say I am love, and see how that feels.
Love. I am love. Yeah. 3
simple words. If you really accept that, well, you don't need to be respected by your ex, or to be fairly treated, or for the justice system to give you whatever good, because you are love, and that's it. You've accepted it.
Yeah.
So you're no longer relying on the external world to give you the love that you think you're lacking.
Yes.
Which is, losing game. You can try that and it doesn't work. It never works. Because the external world, if you're coming from a place of lack, believing that you're not love, that you're actually a victim, and therefore you don't deserve love, then you're going to keep creating the same thing. Well, from that place of lack, the world's going to show you what you believe. Oh, you don't actually deserve love, and just keep giving you evidence that you don't deserve love, and you're a victim, and you're unfairly treated, and whatever. And until you claim it for yourselves, I am love. All of this, everything you've experienced here, is a result of a self-concept, which is that you're a victim, and you're powerless, and you don't deserve love. That's where it's all coming from.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you turn it around and you just say, I am love. That's your true identity. That just dissolves it all. You can't be a victim and be pure formless awareness of perfect love. And that's not possible.
Yeah. So really, I mean, that's the message to reinforce throughout. I mean, we talked about things as well, but as well as doing the course lessons and reinforcing the lesson throughout the day, reinforcing that message, I am love, and coming back to that and having that as perhaps a focus of meditation, that will do it, won't it?
Yeah. You change your self-concept. That's what it's all about. So a lady called Marisa Peer, have you heard of her? She did some hypnotherapy and was very successful because she just got her clients to say an affirmation. I'm enough. I'm love. Pick a word, whichever. I'm powerful. Say, I am powerful.
I'm powerful.
And you connect in with the energy. The word has a frequency. You connect in with it in a deep state. You bring that energy in. That undoes the victim, powerless. It just transmutes it, and it's gone.
I guess it's a balance, isn't it? I mean, I have done this stuff, and I have, done the affirmations and the various processes. But if it's disproportionate and all the other stuff and what appears to be going on in the illusion is occupying more of my mind or more neural pathways or whatever, then the other stuff perhaps isn't. Perhaps it's bad.
So yes, you're saying don't make exceptions. Every instance, Every time you're tempted to go into frustration, sadness, anger, hatred, feeling trapped, feeling disappointed, every time that arises, you let it go. Every time. You don't make exceptions.
Yeah.
So you just need to be really vigilant.
Yeah.
And
which is what I've been doing. And I think, it's been a long process because there's a lot to release, but feels like, this could be a turning point. Feels like I want it to be a turning point.
Yeah. And then you remind yourself every time you forgive of who you are. I am love.
Yeah.
The forgiveness is the process of letting go of the obstacles to your true self and realizing, that this is who you really are.
Yes.
I'm going to show you this as well. This might help. This Holy Trinity diagram. So there's various tools that we've developed just to help you understand it. So there's the idea of the Holy Trinity: Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Most Christians have no idea what that really means and how that works. It's an operating system. That's what it is. It's an operating system for your mind and your life. So Yeshua's saying, okay, so you've got all this illusion stuff going on, all these experiences in time and space. But what is the self behind that's perceiving those? And if you have a false self, the victim self, then your perceptions are all going to be distorted. So what you need to do is you need to start perceiving correctly, which installs a new self. This is like the new operating system, the true self, or the Christ, the Son of God, the extension of love. In the East, it's called the Buddha or the Atman. It doesn't matter what word you use. And because that self can perceive. If there's no self, the Buddhist doctrine talks about no self. Well, that's pointing to is this abstract, pure, formless awareness of perfect love, where there's no self-concept anymore. It's just pure awareness, what the Buddha called nirvana. But how does pure awareness perceive? It doesn't. So you have this insoluble problem there. And Yeshua's tried to solve it for us through this idea of the Holy Trinity and the idea of the Holy Spirit that can perceive correctly. It can interpret everything in the illusion correctly from the perspective of the one self, which is the Christ, which is drawing on this awareness. It's communicating. You connected to your own deepest awareness, pure formless awareness of perfect love. But this is like the translator. It can take that and say, okay, well, how does this translate in this world of duality and perception? So now I can change my perceptions, and that's what we've been trained in. True perceptions, or Christ's vision, also known as miracles. It's a process of forgiveness, or at-one-ment, or enlightenment, or acceptance, or salvation, or surrender. There's many words for it, but it's a process of changing your mind, your perception. And so that's what the Holy Trinity is about. It's a process, an operating system to ultimately free your mind from all of this. At the highest level, when you're in pure formless awareness of perfect love, there is no Christ, there is no Holy Spirit. There's just that awareness. It's a singular awareness, and that's all it is.
So the Trinity is to get you there.
Yeah,
via
an operating system. It's
right.
not ultimate truth. Like forgiveness is not the ultimate truth, but it's necessary in the illusion to get you out of the illusion. So
the Holy Spirit is the intuition which gets you ultimately connected to God, which is a pure formless awareness of perfect love. Is that right?
Well, it connects you to your true self, which is the Christ, which then is perceiving. You see, so now you have this one self arising more and more. And the more you identify with that one self, the more this awareness will arise in your mind. So Christ will lead you back to God, which is the whole idea. But you need a bridge, you need an intermediary, because to go straight from here, as you'll know, and you're dealing with things in duality and time and space, and then to go into pure formless awareness of perfect love, it's a massive shift. This is outside of time and space. There's no perception. It's a revelation where everything just disappears. Now that can happen sometimes to people where they just go, wow, suddenly I saw the light and I just went into this, into this awareness. But it's unusual for most of us. We need a systematic, progressive process to, be able to change our minds, change our perceptions, to be able to work at this. And you just keep working and changing your perceptions, and maybe it seems like nothing's happening, but actually you're undoing the ego, because the ego and your current perception of the world are one. The perception is a projection of the ego,
Right.
manifestation of the ego. So your self-concept is bound up in your perception. And Yeshua understands that link and then says, okay, well, let's work on perception then. Because this is beyond what I can teach you. But I can teach you how to perceive correctly. And then your self-concept will change. It has to change if you perceive correctly. So the Holy Spirit leads you to Christ. And if you fully identify with Christ or the true self, then this experience will start arising more and more in your mind. And you will just start to have more mystic experiences. And eventually you lay the body aside, poof, pop, and you're gone. Back, you just merged your awareness back into that awareness, which you were already in at that level. You know, you're not, when Ramana, so a guru and enlightened guru in last century, when he was dying, everyone's sad and saying, oh, you know, his disciples are sad, saying, we're going to miss you. And he says, I'm not going anywhere. Why are you sad? I'm just going back into I'm already there. I'm already in that awareness. Just the body's going to disappear. That's all. So it's no big deal. I'm already there. And, you know, so for him, it's no big deal because the body was not real for it. But you know, most of us, we've got to learn systematically and progressively how to do that. He did it in one go. In 16, he just had a profound experience, and that was it. But I can almost guarantee you that was a result of many lifetimes of work. He didn't just get it at 16, and it was like, no, he'd probably done all kinds of stuff, and that was his final lifetime, and all of that previous work, he just needed one experience where he confronted his fear of death and went into that intensely for a few minutes, and then he overcame it and was like, oh, actually, I realized there is no death. There's really nothing to be frightened of. And he just
sounds like Ramana Maharshi, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just got it at 16, and then he stayed there for the rest of his life. Well, for most of us mere mortals, it's a bit harder work. You know, you've got to keep working at it and working through this stuff on the level of form, you know, all of your experiences. But you know, that's Yeshua's given it. He hasn't given this course for the Ramanas of the world. He's given it to you know, the people who are struggling like us, trying to work this out and let go of all of our stuff. And saying, okay, I understand you got this stuff, but just do this process that I'm giving you called forgiveness, and do it systematically and progressively in a disciplined way. And you can't fail. You will eventually transcend, because I know this process works. So you have to trust him. Say, look, he knows what he's doing because he's used the system to get out himself. He understands this because he's mastered it, and he's used this as his escape route. So, you know, if you want to escape the illusion, you want to use the prison analogy. You want to escape the prison, you go to a prisoner who's escaped, not one who's been there for 50 years and has given up all hope of escape. You know, you'd go to an Andy Dufresne and say, okay, you show me the way out because you did it. Not someone who's still stuck there, you know, believing that that's their lot in life and there's no escape. So, you know, Yeshua is the escape artist. He's done it. And he's saying, okay, from the perspective outside of time and space, outside of the prison, I'll show you how to do it. And he's given this course to us to show us how to do it. It's detailed instruction manual saying, okay, just follow my guidance and you can't fail. I know this works. Just, you know, keep at it. And of course, the ego is just going to try and stop you from doing that. It's going to try everything it can to sabotage you doing the forgiveness that's necessary. So in the end, it comes down again to, what do you want to be? Do you want to be the true self, the Christ, or do you want to be a separate self, which ultimately, no matter how you frame that, is a victim of the world? Even if you're gotta love him, Donald Trump, love using him as an example. You know, he still believes he's a victim, and you see that come out. You know, he's like the grand I am, and he's become president, and then he loses, and he's extremely bad loser. And he's like, oh, I've been unfairly treated. He's still playing the victim, isn't he? So nothing's really changed. His grandiosity only masked his victim identity, which sooner or later is then going to come out. So there's no mastery there. It's just puffing, you know, ego puffing up. Whereas, you know, you look at, you know, some more spiritually oriented even presidents, they sort of, you could see they got something deeper. They connected with their true self, and they started to live that. Like say John F. Kennedy, and Abraham Lincoln, But interesting, the ones who really started tapping in got assassinated because the ego didn't want that. So okay, we'll just take you out then, because we don't want that kind of consciousness brought into mainstream. So
that's interesting.
mm.
So the ego, yeah. I mean, that's the world ego, I suppose. The ego.
Well, there's only one ego, and that's behind the whole thing. Remember, the ego is this idea of separation that birthed the entire world and universe, and it just wants to keep you in prison. There's only agendas, and you're going to stay in your little limited self-concept. You're going to stay human, or whatever form. You could choose another if you wanted, but you're going to believe that you're separate, because if you don't believe you're separate, it has no minds to host it, and it can't play its game anymore. It's game over. So it needs people to be enslaved to this belief to play the game.
But what's the point of the ego, really? I mean, why?
There is no point, Jackie. That's the whole point. There is no point.
There's a creation.
It's just
there's the God mind, idea. And then then there's the false idea.
There's no point. That's what Yeshua's saying. If there were a point to it, then this would all be justified, and then there would be some kind of meaning to it. But he's telling us very clearly, none of it has any meaning. Nothing I see means anything. Lesson number 1. I mean, it's all there.
Yeah.
He doesn't mince his words. He's just like straight in with it. There's the truth.
Yeah.
Nothing I see means anything. Why? Because it's all false. It's all based on a false belief.
And it all comes back to the tiny mad idea of wanting to try out separation.
Yeah. And
Garden of Eden.
Create another self that now seems to usurp our true self.
Yeah.
And I'm in charge now. I have power. I have the power to change my mind and do what I want. And we thought that was a good idea when we thought of it. And then you play that idea out to its logical conclusion of being a victim enslaved in a body, doomed to suffer and die. And you go, no, maybe it wasn't such a good idea. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea. In fact, definitely wasn't such a good idea.
Prodigal son.
Yeah, I want to go home.
Yeah.
So nothing was wasted, because you needed that experience in order to realize that this was a really foolish idea and you want to go home.
Yes.
And that's the human story, and that's the human journey.
Yes.
So, ultimately, the whole thing was illusory and a delusion, but you needed your life experience to make you realize that. And that's the whole purpose of your life. So don't beat yourself up for it.
No.
So at least I'm coming to the point now where I'm learning that. At least I'm not, 20, 30 years younger, still believing in my delusion that somehow the world would work, and that, my special relationship or whatever else would save me.
Yeah.
At least I'm over that. I realized that it won't. And I needed that experience of my life to show me that. So your life isn't wasted at all. It was necessary to free your mind.
Yeah.
And then you can let go of the guilt and, beating yourself up over it, because it's just like, well, that's the human condition. That's what everyone's going through. That's why we're all here. So, okay, just accept that. Have a little laugh about it. Go, okay, but at least I get it now.
Yeah.
It's taken me 50 odd years or whatever, but at least I'm waking up to it.
Yeah.
And the truth be told, you probably couldn't have got it when you were 20, because you needed the life experiences to help you to get it.
Yes.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
You can't just get it without those experiences, often many of which are painful.
Yes.
It's the pain that wakes you up to the truth that the ego is not working.
Yeah.
When you're 15, someone could have told you, no, look, don't even bother to get married because it's all an illusion, and you wouldn't have believed it. You would have still gone, because there was something in you that was like, no, but I want that experience.
Yeah. Well, and then of course there's the whole children thing as well, and that's quite that kind of. Well, I suppose they're an illusion as well, aren't they? But, you want to.
It's all illusion, but you needed to experience it to realize what it is and transcend it.
Yes.
So that's all good. Now you can look back on that and go, okay, I can reflect on those experiences and I can learn from it. And I don't need to do this again. So I can heal my mind. I can truly forgive myself, truly forgive everyone else, heal my mind, and that's it. Done deal. I'm over. I don't need to do another human life. There's no need for it. I can just take my mind back to its original state of pure formless awareness. and be the true self that I am. And I can do that while I'm here, while I live out the rest of my life. I can do that, so I can live a happy dream. There's no need to like suddenly terminate it. You can actually have quite an interesting time here. It's an illusion, but you're bringing the truth into your mind, and you now become an agent of truth, and that's going to guide you to have the most interesting, inspiring experience that you can possibly have in the dream world, to help you and others to free themselves from the dream. And that's your only function. So it has a temporary use. Your life and it has a temporary use, if you will see that and allow the Holy Spirit to use it, which just means you've got to accept who you are, and let go of all the delusions that caused all the pain and suffering, because none of that was you and none of it was true. So it's really simple, really, really simple. But to realize that, is the process, because it's so radically simple that our mind can't grasp it.
Yeah.
And we're so caught up in our illusions on this level that it takes a lot of mental discipline to say, no, but remember, when you get the lawyer's letter or you have a conversation with your husband or whatever, it's like, remember here now that actually all of this is not true. And then you raise your awareness above it, above the battleground, and you go back in that moment to this. So you raise yourself above the timeline of consciousness. Here's another view of it. The timeline of consciousness is all these events in your life, trauma. So divorce, messy divorce. In fact, I think I've got it here. Yeah, major adult trauma, messy divorce. There we go. Especially for you.
Thank you.
Major, and so you reflect on that, and the ego wants to pull you down into the psychological and emotional drama of it, which roots you onto the timeline and makes you identify with the self-concept of Jackie and your whole story. And the spirit looks at the same situation and helps you to go above the battleground and say, no, remember, you're still pure formless awareness of perfect love. That awareness, that loving awareness, is still in your mind, and you can have that right now. And that's what forgiveness is, just letting go of those misperceptions, which have no source. You see, it's kind of a disconnected arrow. There's actually nothing there behind it. And giving it over to the Holy Spirit, which means you go into this awareness and surrender to that and experience it in that moment. And then you're teaching yourself, okay, well, this is what's true, always true. It's always been there. It's the vertical dimension rather than the horizontal, which is obscured for most people. But you can go into that with forgiveness. And the more you do that, the more you train your mind that this is your true awareness, this is your true identity, and that the whole timeline and all the drama that the ego sponsors on the timeline is simply not true. And then at the point of death, when you finally lay the body aside, it's like, well, I'm just letting go of the vehicle. I don't need the vehicle anymore because I learned what I needed to learn. So I just merge my mind back into pure formless awareness. I don't need the body anymore. Served its use, and I'm gone. And then I don't have to recycle. So what most people do, because they haven't accessed this when they're alive, they skip this entirely. They've still got all their egoic drama going on. That's called karma. And then they come back. And the accumulated egoic energy or karma just brings them back into another birth. And they do the whole timeline again. And they just bypass this. And then you keep doing that until you start forgiving and going directly to the source during your life. And that's the process Yeshua's given us. He's saying, by forgiving, you're going to be doing this all the time. Especially in these majorly difficult, challenging situations, you're going to remind yourself of the truth. And if you can do that in the face of the great temptations that the ego gives you, then you've done it. You've done your work, and you've healed your separation, your separated mind. You've let go of your karma, and you're ready just to merge back into this pure formless awareness of perfect love. And that's the end of the dream. There's no need for this illusion anymore once your mind is at home here, at home in God. So they're giving you different angles on it. There's many different ways of framing this. I don't know why that just did that. Many different ways of framing it, and it's all just designed as pointers to help you realize the truth. Okay, so where are we? Let's go back to our lesson. I think we're about to able to dive into the lesson now. In fact, maybe just read. I think we got here. So, Jackie, if you can read, whenever you read and reflect on one of Yeshua's mind training lessons.
Okay. Whenever you read and reflect on one of Yeshua's mind training lessons from the A Course in Miracles workbook, and use it to help you let go of negative thoughts and emotions, such as anger, attack thoughts, and what the quote calls lack of love in whatever form it may take, you accept the premise that none of these thoughts and emotions are real, and neither are the people, things, events, and circumstances that seem to justify them.
Yeah.
No.
So you see how it works. Whenever you do it, practically, you're saying none of this is real. You're teaching yourself the truth that none of this is real because you're not reacting to it mentally and emotionally. And so that's how it becomes very practical and very, very real in your experience, not just some theoretical abstract idea. It's like, this is directly affects my thoughts, my emotions, my perceptions, which makes up my life here. So it is a life-changing teaching, and it just requires the vigilance to do it. Say, okay, I'll just keep practicing this. You've given us these lessons to help us make the right choice again and again. We've made the wrong choice over and over and over. So you're saying, well, practice the lesson to make the right choice and start retraining your mind to accept your true identity and who you really are, and live a happy dream. You can be quite happy and peaceful here if you're not involved in all of this drama, and you transcend all of this. Without your divorce, you'd be happy. What's there to disturb your peace? But the ego's used that as a justification for disturbing your peace, for then confirming that you're a victim, and it wants to keep the problem going because that justifies itself, and it keeps you very busy with egoic thoughts and emotions rather than the truth, as you know from your own experience. So the only way out is letting go.
Yeah.
It's the single skill that you have to master in this life. It says forgiveness is your only function. Letting go is your only function. It's the only thing you have to learn in the face of the temptations that the ego is going to give you not to learn it. That's the human journey. It's going to give you the traumas and the difficulties and the challenges precisely to tempt you not to learn forgiveness and to attach and go into its whole drama and reinforce the false self-concept. And the forgiveness or letting go simply says, no, I'm not going to fall for that trap. I'm going to discipline my mind, and no matter what, I will not make exceptions. Because if you make an exception, then you identify again with the self-concept. You're on the timeline again, and the timeline ends in death. It's all a bit desperate and pointless, and there is a sense of futility to it. Well, why do we go through all of these experiences? If you were going to come in to a life and you looked at this and said, okay, well, this is going to be how it's going to go. You're going to have a major childhood trauma. Your parents going to die, and then you're going to have a rejection in your teens. You're going to fall desperately in love with someone. They're going to reject you, and then you're going to marry a surrogate parent, and then you're going to get a messy divorce, and then you're going to lose your job, and in between you might have some kids, and there might be some nice times. But would you take it? Would you go, yes, oh yeah, absolutely, I'll sign up for that? You wouldn't. No one in their right mind would take this. They'd go, that just sounds like hell. That's a trip into hell. Why would I do that? And so that's what Yeshua's trying to say. Look, this isn't worth it. It doesn't matter what's going on the timeline. Even if you have some apparently good stuff, it's all happening within the drama of the human life, which is always dualistic. There's no one who's experienced a life free of pain and suffering. It just doesn't happen. So if you don't want pain and suffering, don't come here. Stay in pure formless awareness of perfect love. It doesn't exist at all. And that's a decision that we came here to learn to make. And that's why we do the mind training and all the work. Okay, so that leads us to lesson 297, which we can have a little look at. So Any questions before we move on? Any questions, comments? No? Okay, so
When you were doing the instrument of peace, I had
Mhm.
like a coughing fit in it. When you got down to the ego belief down the bottom, nearly choked.
Really?
So have you saved that instrument of peace? Can you send it to Jackie so we can
Yes,
both dissect
I
it and make
can.
sure
Let
we
me
haven't missed anything?
let me do that before I forget. So now, where is it? That's the question.
I know.
Okay,
I went out of the room and checked it, but I couldn't see what it was. So I want to.
right, so I'm going to go print the PDF. Okay, so print. And there's that, processes and sessions. As you can see, I've done this with a few people. So let's just choose that. There's a whole section beyond this.
You read it, it takes you through a process.
Takes you through a process. So you can either do that on your own, or I do one-on-one sessions where I'll take you through that if you want to. But Sally's quite experienced at it. So there you basically go through, you read through the diagram. So when I think about, and then it populates it for you with what you've put in up front. And then you just read through it and contemplate what it's saying. And by the end of it, come out at page 6. And there's a release that will have happened if you spent, might take you 20 minutes, half an hour to work through it. But take as long as you need to really, it's about really delving into the emotions, feeling it, and then releasing it. So it's a self-revealing exercise. So that's definitely worth exploring. Go read that after the session and work through it, and yeah, let it do its miraculous healing work, because it does. Okay, so let's I'll send that to you, and just right now, so make sure that's done, otherwise I might forget. And so attach it, and then we'll dive into the lesson, shall we? Process this. Okay, there we go. So you've got it. So let's have a look at the lesson 297. And we've got, yeah, there's all of that. Well, it's going to take us a while. So let's just do the lesson. It's already nearly 2:30. Okay, so forgiveness is the only gift I give is the original lesson, and then translated as letting go is the only gift I give. So who would like to read paragraph 1?
Letting go is the only gift I give because it is the gift I want. And everything.
You left out only.
Did I?
Yes,
Okay.
you did.
Letting go is the only gift I give because it's the only gift I want. And everything I give myself. This is awakening's simple formula. And I who am awakening, choose to make it mine, to be the way I live within a world that needs awakening and that will be freed as I accept at one moment for myself.
Yeah.
Mm.
Your thoughts on that? I'm stating a very simple truth. We know this, but he's just restating it.
It always feels different though when you say it out loud in a group. Yeah. Everything I give. Yeah. Everything I give to myself. That's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a fundamental lesson. As I give, I receive. So when I let go of my own negativity, this is all forgiveness. This is all that forgiveness is. It's letting go of your own negative thoughts and emotions towards about a person, situation, event, circumstance. That's all that it is. Because a lot of people say, well, I forgive you. What does that even mean? How do I forgive you? No, I let go of my negative thoughts and emotions about you. That's what forgiveness means. And that's the only gift you can give to the other person or people involved and to yourself in the situation. Because you're letting go of this false belief in separation that's causing everyone so much grief.
And it's the classic thing when you're angry with someone, the only person feeling angry is yourself, isn't it? And
so who's suffering? You suffering.
Yeah, it's
All attack is self-attack, because you're experiencing the effects of your own attack.
Yeah. And all lack of forgiveness is lack of letting go for ourselves. Yeah. Yeah.
Just allowing those negative thoughts and emotions to preoccupy your mind. And that's the covering over the truth of pure formless awareness. The ego's created. So the world is just the justification for those negative thoughts and emotions. The ego needs the justification of an external world to justify them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be justified. And if you were just incorporeal, why would you need to suffer and have all this pain and suffering? It needs the world in order to justify them. So the world and the self-concept are one. That's the insight that Yeshua's had. And the way to break that is through forgiveness or letting go.
Yeah, I see it as the world, the aspects of me that I haven't included in my oneness. And any separation that I see out there at all, me separating from me separating from my true self. It gets clearer and clearer every time I envision it. It's a real classic, isn't it?
So the answer is really simple. All I've got to do is let go of my own negative thoughts and emotions. Very simple. That's all I've got to do. That's why he says that one-ment is the sole responsibility of the miracle worker. Just let go of the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. That's all you have to do, and everything else will follow. Because when you do that, you collapse the belief in separation, and you allow the divine source to come in, that loving awareness to come in and make changes, because that's fundamental awareness.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting that more and more. That, like with my ex-husband and my brother and things, that there's absolute unconditional love there, and it's very clear. And yeah, it's nice to feel all these different areas of my life as healed and complete and absorbed into the oneness. And it's just a good moment when you find somebody that doesn't quite feel unconditional love, and it's another opportunity, isn't it, to forgive?
Because that's in that moment, you're no longer in loving awareness. You've moved out of it into a separated awareness. So it's so I mean, it's so obvious, isn't it? Really,
it's obvious, it takes a lot of
work. It's obvious and simple, but it takes a lot of work to get there, because the ego is obscured the obvious and the simple with all of its complexities. And it's like, to clear all of that away and just see it so clearly and simply is why we do this work. And then there's only one option. You go, well, letting go is the only option. There's no other tool, technique, process. There's nothing else that's going to work. This is what's going to work. And so let me just do it. And so you stop seeking for something to save you, and you go, well, I have what's going to save me. I've just got to apply it. And that's when you really start to make progress.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful, really, isn't it? That it's all laid out in front of us, and we just got all these hints and pointers that, that's a bit of you haven't forgiven, that's a bit of you haven't forgiven. You just keep doing the work.
It's a process, and you will get there. So this is a path. He's not saying you have to be a spiritual genius or rely on some stroke of good fortune. You just plug away at it. Just be disciplined, work at it, and it's inevitable. You will get there if you keep plugging away using this simple formula that he's given us. This is awakening simple formula.
in the beginning, it feels like there's so much to do. But then there comes to be a tipping point, doesn't there, where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel and see like, oh, actually, there's less and less and less to do. Yes. And wow.
I need do nothing. Yeah, that's the lesson. I need do nothing. Because it's all already given. The more you awaken, the more you go, I need do nothing because it's given to me already. I don't need to do anything to be who I am. I just need to accept it. You know, that's so simple.
And that I am love thing, I mean, that's got so many connotations to it. And that thing about so many people say to me, oh, I must learn to love myself. But they're so far away from the understanding of it. But when you actually do get to, I am love, full stop, nothing else needed. It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a simple truth. It's arriving home. It's like, okay, I can't love myself because now there's a duality and there's a split. Who's loving who? I love myself.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah, the ego's
by definition, that's not love because you have duality going on. You know, love is, I mean, we discussed the other day, you know, you could even just shorten it and say, I am, you know, I am that I am, full stop, right? I just exist. I am that awareness and there's nothing else. As soon as you have subject, object, but love is a kind of, it's not a defined subject, it's an infinite, you know, I am love is an infinite concept. So it's okay. It's a good point.
And then when you're having a disruption with somebody, you can play around with it a bit like the Byron Katie stuff. And so, you know, say you're having difficulty with somebody called Fred, by saying I am Fred, it reminds you that they are you, I am them. There's no separation, we are one. So I think it's helpful just to play around with it, isn't it? Until you find that inroad that lets you into the oneness and then experience it in that moment.
Yeah, and it all becomes, it's quite interesting, you know, it's just thought experiments. Okay, well, let me try that. And, you know, this is how teachers get their material. It's not that they're so brilliant. They just played around and they went, okay, well, let's see what works. Let's see what doesn't. Let's observe. So you try something, it works. You go, okay, well, that worked. So that's a process I can use, and maybe I can teach it to others. And it's always going to have letting go as its foundation, but there's nuances to how do you actually do that. So if you find a good way, then use it and share it, because it's just like giving people many ways of getting to the same outcome.
Yeah, it definitely opens me up if I say I am Jono, I am Susie, I am Jackie, because it just makes me take out the humanness of it. Because it does.
Well, you can't be Sally then. You know, I'm all of them.
Yes, that's it.
I can't just be me in my little self. I'm it's an expanded concept of who you are. You know, I'm everyone.
And it seems to take it from external to internal.
Yeah, which is interesting. So that's how a holy relationship works. He's saying, you know, see your brothers, your companions in the light that reinforces your own true identity, the Christ self. And you're using the relationship to remind you of who you are, and hopefully remind them as well. And that's the purpose of the relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, all good and really simple. What I love about this part 2 of the workbook is it's so simple and direct. There's not a lot of words. He's just giving us very direct, simple paragraph. Here it is, and a prayer, and that's it. And that's your practice. It's just pointing you in. He's saying, okay, you've done all the hard yards. You've read, you know, the long lessons in the part 1. Now it's like just drop in there. Use the words to drop into this state of grace. That's beyond the ego. Okay, so speaking of grace, that's in the next little prayer. So, Susie, if you can read that for us.
My source, how certain are your ways? How sure their final outcome, and how faithfully is every step in my awakening determined, already, and accomplished by your grace. Thanks be to you for your eternal gifts, and thanks to you for my identity.
It's a nice prayer of gratitude, just giving thanks to this source within you that's given you all of this, and acknowledging its presence. And he's saying here, it's a done deal, accomplished by your grace. Every step in my awakening determined already. So like the script is written, Yeshua says at some point in the text, script is written, okay, your hero's journey is already written, script's there, but you have to live it out. You have to play it out. And it appears like you're making choices, but actually it's already been chosen. You don't really have free will. You just think you do. And then just giving thanks for your true identity. Identity is the Christ, the one self. That connects you with your source. Okay, so any thoughts on the lesson? Questions, comments? Jackie, makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we do a meditation
Mhm.
on the lesson? So just making yourself comfortable, sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, back straight. Cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. Breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching the sphincter muscle, locking the energy in. Pausing at the top of the inhale. Connecting with your heart space. Feeling into these words. Bring to mind any thoughts, any emotions, sensations related to those that are at all negative or limiting, contracted, constricting in any way. Notice the thoughts, notice the emotions, notice how that feels in your body. Might be a little subtle clenching of your jaw, your fists, maybe a little knot in your stomach. Notice these subtle sensations. And now, with the help of today's lesson, simply says that letting go is the only gift I give. And give it to yourself and to everyone and everything. So you're letting go. You are released. So exhale. Just blowing it all out with the breeze of your breath. And it all go, surrendering it. Pull the stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. And just rest. In this deep peace, beyond the mind, beyond your thoughts and emotions, lies pure formless awareness of perfect love. It's like the blue sky of your mind, beyond the clouds. So just breathing in and out through the nose. Nice, steady, slow, calm breaths. Create some space, some light, some awareness in your mind. And I'm now going to read you the preliminary section on what is the real world, and then take you through the lesson. So Yeshua starts off by saying that the real world is a symbol, like the rest of what perception offers. Yet it stands for what is opposite to what you made. Your world is perceived through eyes of fear and brings the witnesses of terror to your mind. The real world cannot be perceived except through eyes letting go blesses. So they see a world where terror is impossible and witnesses to fear cannot be found. So the real world is the world reinterpreted by the Spirit. There's no fear. There are no witnesses to fear. You simply corrected your mind. You realize the truth that this world is a dream, an illusion. The underlying awareness of the truth permeates all of your perceptions. So the real world holds a counterpart for each unhappy thought reflected in your world, a sure correction for the sights of fear and sounds of battle which your world contains. The real world shows a world perceived differently through quiet eyes and with a mind at peace. Nothing but rest is there. There are no cries of pain and sorrow heard. Nothing there remains beyond letting go. And the sights are gentle. Only happy sights and sounds can reach the mind that has released itself. So just keep watching your breath. You're breathing in and out. Through your nose. Breathing in and breathing out, focusing all attention on the breath, just focuses your mind on the truth. It's deeper presence beyond perception. So let your mind go there and let these words just drop into that space, that spacious awareness in your mind. Pebbles in a pond on a still, calm windless day. Because your mind is so still, the ripple effects are going to be noticeable. So Yeshua says, what need has such a mind? It's calm and peaceful and clear. For thoughts of death, attack, and murder, what can it perceive surrounding it except safety, love, and joy? What is there it could choose to be condemned? And what is there that it could judge against? So breathe in. Notice any thoughts of condemnation of anyone or anything. So that's attack thoughts, anger, frustration, guilt. Projected guilt is blame, blaming thoughts, hatred. And you just breathe in and feel some light, some awareness coming into your mind. Loosen the ego's grip. world it perceives. This is the mind that's now enlightened, right-minded perception. And the world it perceives arises from a mind at peace within itself. No danger lurks in anything it perceives, for it is kind, and only kindness does it look upon. So breathe in kindness, loving kindness, fundamental practice in many religions. To be loving and kind is to allow loving awareness into your mind. So the real world is the symbol that the dream of sin and guilt is over. And perfect love's extension no longer sleeps. Its waking eyes perceive the sure reflection of its source's love. Certain promise that it is redeemed, that it is freed. Real world signifies the end of time. Its perception makes time purposeless. So you can see from this perception of the real world that time is really an illusion. The purpose of time is to awaken in time, to transcend time. You realize time is actually purposeless, to live out a little life on the timeline and believe that that is real. Keep yourself away from heaven and God is purposeless and meaningless. So the Holy Spirit, or the remembrance of perfect love, has no need of time when it has served its purpose. Now it waits just one moment more. For pure formless awareness of perfect love to take its final step. And then time has disappeared. Taking perception with it as it does, and leaving only the truth to be itself. That moment is our goal. It contains the memory of perfect love. And as we look upon a world released, it is this presence that calls to us and comes to take us home, reminding us of our identity, which our letting go has restored to us. And so just connect with this true identity, your Christ self, beyond all illusions. You blow them all away, breathe in, and bring to mind any thoughts, emotions, sensations that seem to be troubling you at all. Remind yourself that letting go is the only gift I give, because it is the only gift I want. And everything I give myself. This is awakening's simple formula. And I, who am awakening, choose to make it mine. Choose to make it mine right now. Breathe it in to every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being. Breathing in the gift of Source. So I am awakening, choose to make it mine. I accept it fully as the way I live within a world that needs awakening and will be freed as I accept atonement for myself. So accept it now. Atonement is universal oneness. You accept that only this now let's finish with a prayer. Say, Father or Source, my source, how certain are your ways, how sure their final outcome, and how faithfully is every step in my awakening determined already and accomplished by your grace. So just feel this identity, your Christ identity. So how faithfully is every step in my awakening determined. How sure the outcome, final outcome, all accomplished by the grace of this loving awareness that you're aware of right now. So say thanks to it. Say thanks be to you for your eternal gifts, and thanks to you for my identity. And rest in this state of loving awareness and gratitude. A couple of minutes of deep silence. There's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe in and out through your nose, relax. Nowhere else to go, there's nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe in and out through your nose. Observe the breath, relax, be still, and allow this loving, grateful awareness to fill your heart and mind, every part of your body. If any thoughts arise, seemingly break this deep state of connection with your source. You just observe those thoughts about your timeline, the past, the future, what you have to do in the world. Any distraction from the source, who you really are. Just let it go. With the help of your breath, the lessons, and letting go. Is the only gift I give in this situation to others and to myself. Every gift is given to me. So I come into an awareness through letting go of who I really am. That's the priceless gift. So just rest in this pure formless awareness of perfect love. Just letting it all go, surrendering it all to the nothingness it really is. Going, gone, blow it all away like a dark cloud, leaving you. And what remains is just the truth. So rest in that truth for another minute or so of deep silence. And so just gently now coming back, this deep state of awareness, letting go brings you into, bring your awareness back into the awareness of the body and the breath, and the senses and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, it's breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. So notice the physical sensations to way back into the world, but you stay aware of what's underlying them. And on the count of 3, you can open your eyes. So 1, breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just pausing at the top of the inhale, smile. Scan your mind again, notice any thoughts, emotions, sensations going on, particularly anything that feels negative, limiting, contracted, constricting in any way. And then just let it go. With the help of your breath, blowing it all away to the nothingness that it really is. Count to 2, notice the weight of your body now pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling with your hands touching. Maybe there's a subtle smell in your nose, a taste in your mouth. Breathe in, notice what you're smelling, what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Without any judgment, so just observe these sense perceptions in a very detached way, so you don't make them real. So you're going to anchor this deeper state of awareness into your mind. You're going to carry this presence with you. the rest of the afternoon and evening. No matter what happens, so it is said and so it is done. To help you to practice, just stay connected to this presence by practicing today's lesson frequently. Bisha recommends every hour, so listen to the 4-minute breath break recording I've given you, or you can follow the short instructions in the Telegram message or email to help you to practice this frequently. Keep topping yourself up, keep reconnecting to your source, which is who you really are. So you're going to stay connected to the state, no matter what challenges, obstacles, thoughts, emotions, sensations come up. And always bring yourself back into this awareness you're in now by just recalling the lesson, spending a bit of time just letting go whatever's blocking your awareness of love's presence. So now on the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around, noticing the objects in the room around you in this very calm, peaceful, detached way. Let your eyes dwell for a few seconds on any object. Don't try and select any object or avoid anything, whatever happens to be there, and just notice the awareness that's underlying it. It should be very peaceful, very calm, not a lot of mental activity, not judging that object, labeling it, interpreting it. You just observe it in this very clear, calm way. Then look at something else, any other object, don't select it or avoid it. And notice that you have exactly the same awareness that underlies your perception of it. Do that for another 2 or 3 things, for a few seconds at a time. So you're training your mind to anchor itself into this awareness, deeper awareness, not be swayed by the illusions that the world of form presents. And that'll keep you in touch with this deeper awareness, your own pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is God, and that presence will guide your thoughts and your words and your actions. So that's what I wish for you, very guided, flowing, loving, surrendered afternoon and evening ahead. And good practicing. So that brings us to the end of the meditation. And just have a quick, see how long this one is. It's a couple of paragraphs, maybe we can do it. So there's a bit of the text. I'm not going to run a session tonight. But how long is that? 5 paragraphs. Well, so we could do that quickly in about 15 minutes. Do you want to have a quick read of this?
Yeah, okay.
All right. So if you want to read it and just translate as you go. There's not too much to do, bit of God's teachers, but mostly we can just keep it as it is. So Sally, if you can read, can what has no beginning really end?
Can what has no beginning really end? The world will end in an illusion as it begins, yet will its ending be an illusion of mercy, the illusion of letting go, complete, excluding no one, limitless in gentleness will cover it, hiding all evil, concealing all sin, and ending guilt forever. So ends the world that guilt has made, and now it has no purpose and is gone. The source of illusions is the belief that they have a purpose. They serve a need or gratify a want. Perceived as purposeless, they are no longer seen. Their uselessness is recognized and they are gone. How but in this way are all illusions ended? They have been brought to truth, and truth saw them not. It merely overlooked the meaningless.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
Hmm.
This is an answer to the question, how will the world end? I don't think I said that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Just restating what we already know, saying will end in the illusion of mercy, which is another word for forgiveness. Excluding no one, limitless in gentleness will cover it. So your perception is just changed, and everything is let go of. As he says here, the illusion of forgiveness, complete. It's an illusion, but it's necessary in the dream to end the world. And then, the world simply has no more purpose and it's gone. The disappearance of the universe. You've read that book. Just disappears. It's all an illusory projection of an insane mind.
It's like earlier on you said poof and pop. I thought that was a really good term. Poof, pop,
Yes.
illusion will go.
Poof, pop. Yeah.
Hmm.
Your belief in separation goes, the projection of that belief must go too. That's the infallible logic on which this course is based. So it's just restating what we already know. In answer to the question, because this might be a question people ask, how will the world end? So it's not an apocalypse, it's not destruction, it just ceases to exist, it just disappears. And you simply won't come, when you fully understood, you won't come back into human form, and the world won't exist for you. It only exists because you think you're separate, and therefore you come into human form, and then you seem to be subject to the laws of time and space, which you invented. Okay, so number 2. Happy with number 1? Any comments, questions on that?
No, I can imagine it. Yeah.
Can kind of start feeling into these words. It's really beautiful. So is Jackie still with you?
Yeah.
Let's ask Jackie to read.
During the medication.
Right.
Until forgiveness or letting go is complete.
Okay. Until forgiveness is complete, the world does have a purpose. It becomes the home in which forgiveness is born, and where it grows and becomes stronger and more all-embracing. Here is it nourished, for here it is needed. A gentle saviour, born where sin was made and guilt seemed real. Here is his home, for here there is no need. For here there is need of him indeed. He brings the ending of the world with him. It is his call, God's teachers answer, turning to him in silence to receive his word. The world will end when all things in it have been rightly judged by his judgment. The world will end with the benediction of holiness upon it. When not one thought of sin remains, the world is over. It will not be destroyed, nor attacked, nor even touched. It will merely cease to seem to be.
Okay, thoughts, feelings about that?
It makes perfect sense, but I can't really explain it. Yes, it's about right judgment, isn't it? I mean, until we need forgiveness, see the world correctly. And the world, I mean, we need the world for that correct judgment, to let go of all the negativity, anything that's not forgiveness and love.
And this human here, this is just the Holy Spirit, the remembrance of love. It's calling you, God's teachers. You're a teacher of God or a teacher of love. So we just translate these things into slightly different language. Answering your question, really, what's the purpose of forgiveness? It's an illusion, but it's the illusion that takes you home. It gets you out of the dream, that makes the world into a happy, peaceful, beautiful place, irrespective of what illusions, are seemingly countering that, contradicting that.
Yeah.
And will merely cease to seem to be. So you don't fight illusions, you don't rage against them, you simply let them go. So simple. They simply seem, they're illusions, and they just cease to seem to be because you don't give them any belief anymore. And so you got to practice that, in miniature versions with everything in your life. Okay, so you've got a messy divorce. Well, it just merely ceases to seem to be if you let it go. And if you do really let it go, then you see, in the world, a miracle can happen where, okay, that all just dissolves. And that kind of shows you it's a little miniature version of the whole world dissolving. So we're practicing it in these little instances, because to let go of the entire world and dissolve it all in one go is seemingly impossible. So you practice it in these little moments of dissolving your belief in the reality of whatever the ego is showing you. And if you just keep doing that, eventually you'll have learned it. There'll be no need to practice anymore, in which case you don't need the experiences of a human experience or human life anymore. If you're already in pure formless awareness, there's no need for forgiveness. Not necessary anymore. Okay, so happy with that. Any other thoughts, comments, questions on number 2? Number 3, Susie, if you can read that for us.
Certainly, this seems to be a long, long while away, and not one thought of sin remains. Appears to be a long-range goal indeed, but time stands still and waits on the goal of God's teachers. Not one thought of sin will remain the instant any one of them accepts at one moment for himself. It is not easier to forgive one sin than to forgive all of them. The illusion of orders of difficulty is an obstacle the teacher of love must learn to pass by and leave behind. One sin perfectly forgiven by one teacher of love can make salvation complete. Can you understand this? No, it is meaningless to anyone here. Yet it is the final lesson in which unity is restored. It goes against all the thinking of the world, but so does heaven.
Okay. So yeah, teacher of love, salvation is awakening.
Yes, I noticed, I think just after that meditation, I think I've gone into a bit of a, but yeah, I noticed that not all the changes came out for me. But it didn't matter because it's just.
Yeah, and the message underlying is the same. The alternative language just maybe brings it out a bit more. So one sin perfectly forgiven by one teacher of God. That means you perfectly let go of your belief in that particular form of sin. So whatever that may be, husband's bad behavior at a divorce, for instance, you just let that go and you say, I deny that. You deny that, it actually means you deny everything. It's one denial. You're denying the reality of it. If you deny the reality of that, then you deny the reality of everything. It's all in the same level of illusion. That's why saying one sin perfectly forgiven or let go of means that you can let go of all of them, and you're free. Which is so simple. Why don't we just let go in one instance, and then we can generalize it to everything. But it's difficult only because your self-concept is attached to that form, and it's using that to generate the emotional drama, to perpetuate itself. And so it feels like when you're letting go, that you're letting go of yourself. And that's why forgiveness is hard, because you're letting go of the separate self, which then ceases to exist. So for the ego, it feels like forgiveness feels like death, because it's the death of the ego. But it's eternal life. It's restoring your mind to the true awareness beyond death that was there before we invented this mad dream of time and space and sickness and death. It goes against all the thinking of the world, but so does heaven. So they're saying very clearly, you must go against the thinking of the world. You cannot honor that. Which means you run up right against the world's thought system. And initially that doesn't seem easy. Once you get the hang of it, it's quite delightful. You just go, no, that's false, that's false, that's false. But initially it can be a bit seem to be quite difficult. Yeah, is there any thoughts on number 3? So moving on to number 4, the world will end.
The world will end when its thought system has been completely reversed. Until then, bits and pieces of its thinking will still seem sensible. The final lesson, which brings the ending of the world, cannot be grasped by those not yet prepared to leave the world and go beyond its tiny reach. What then is the function of the teacher of God in this concluding lesson? You need merely learn how to approach it, to be willing to go in its direction. You need merely trust that if God's voice tells him it is a lesson he can learn it. He does not judge it either as hard or easy. His teacher points to it and he trusts that he will show him how to learn it. That was interesting. I was going to swap the words, but then I thought, actually, I'm all right with them now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I thought we'd just, read the original. So you understand, it's like God is love. Doesn't matter what word you point to, really.
Yeah.
So any thoughts on that?
Oh, yes, you have to be ready to let go of this illusionary world, don't you? You have to decide, are you going to let it go?
Show him how to learn it. So it's a trust, saying I don't really know the whole. So it can seem impossible to get out and actually collapse the whole world and do this. But the teacher of God or love just says, well, okay, I just follow the direction, I follow the guidance, moment by moment. And that's all I have to do. If I follow my guidance, it's going to lead me out of the maze, and it's a done deal. It's determined already that we're all going to escape. And it's just going to play itself out in time under the guidance of this master guide and teacher called the Holy Spirit, which is, this voice that's speaking to us is that guide. And call it Jesus if you want to. It's just this presence, the remembrance of love guiding you out of it. And so easy, just follow its guidance and it's a done deal.
Yeah, not to see it as hard or easy, or it's going to take a long time, or a lot to clear. It just is in the present moment, isn't it?
Yeah. So then you're going out of time and you're just saying, well, right now something's arising, but I can let it go. And you stop asking questions like, how long is this going to take? And what do I still have to do? And where am I on the scale of consciousness? And what? It's just, no, I'm just right now. I'm letting it go. If I feel like I need to let it go, then I let it go. Very present. And so you collapse all of it in doing that, because it's actually one letting go. You let go, and you let go of all illusions, and you're back in truth. There are no levels really. Truth. If you fully let go, you let go of all illusions. The entire thing just collapses. So that's what we ask to practice in the things. The challenging circumstances are really just practice for us.
That's good.
Okay. We'll give a little summary of number 4. What's he saying there?
Well, for me, it's as soon as you decide you want to reverse the thought system, it will be done, and all the help will be available to do it. If you're not prepared to do it, then it's not going to happen.
So it's a decision to be willing. So look, just be willing, and we'll be willing to listen to the guidance, and you'll be shown the way. And if you keep being willing, you'll be shown increasingly, what to do and where to go. So it just starts with a little willingness, and that grows ultimately into the end of the world. The world just will be undone through that willingness.
Yeah, and that always feels very gentle to me. It's not complicated. All you have to be is willing.
Yeah, lovely message. And then the final one: the world will end in joy.
The world will end in joy because it is a place of sorrow. When joy has come, the purpose of the world has gone. The world will end in peace because it is a place of war. When peace has come, what is the purpose of the world? The world will end in laughter because it is a place of tears. Where there is laughter, who can longer weep? And only complete forgiveness brings all this to bless the world. In blessing it departs, for it will not end as it began. To turn hell into heaven is the function of God's teachers, for what they teach are lessons in which heaven is reflected. And now sit down in true humility and realize that all God would have you do, you can do. Do not be arrogant and say you cannot learn his own curriculum. His word says otherwise. His will be done. It cannot be otherwise. And be you thankful it is so.
Thoughts and feelings about that?
Well, it's a very beautiful image, isn't it? It's why would you want the world? And it's a place of sorrow, war, sadness, and once we've let go of all that stuff, and we're only following the curriculum of love, the world has no purpose.
Cannot be otherwise. So it's a done deal. You just have to accept it. Stop being so arrogant and thinking that you cannot learn this curriculum, which is your own, your own loving awareness. Heaven is just pure formless awareness.
Yeah.
State of pure formless awareness. So it's already in your mind, just waiting for you to accept it. So how arrogant to say it's not there when that's the foundation of your mind. That's your true awareness, which cannot be undone. Without that awareness, you would cease to exist, and that's impossible. The mind has always existed in one form or another. You've just clouded it over with the false belief in separation, gone into this ridiculous illusion of separation. But underneath that, the awareness of who you are is still there. Always has been, always will be there, because it's eternal. So it can't ever change. Cannot be otherwise. Be you thankful it is so. So it's just saying again, look, it's a done deal. The world will end. Just follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Keep letting go, and can't fail. It will happen. For you and everyone. So just remember, when the ego comes calling, and it probably will, and you'll have challenges again, and just remember this: it's a done deal. This is already over. Just it's got to play itself out, and you have to go through the motions of letting go, not getting triggered by it. That's what allows it to, the done deal, to unfold. But it's already done.
Yeah.
And you kind of know, there's a part of us that knows that. It's like, okay, I've just got to play out the rest of the dream. But the decision to awaken is made. You've made it. We all made it, else we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just let it play out then. It's going to play out in time. Holy Spirit's going to guide me. There's lessons still apparently to be learned, but I've already decided. So it's, the script is written. It's a done deal.
Yeah. Beautiful, isn't it?
And that just brings you a sense of peace and comfort and relief. It doesn't matter what's going on in the dream, because this is a done deal and I am free. And if you can access that presence right now, then you're free.
Yeah.
Nothing else is needed. Okay.
Amazing.
So yeah, that's how the world will end, according to Yeshua. Any other comments, questions? Otherwise, I think that brings the session to an end.
And I just say I feel really relaxed, really peaceful,
Really
Wow.
chilled out.
So do I. So just stay in that peace, and if you need to top yourself up, practice the lesson again. So no session tonight because we've just done this. So we'll have another one tomorrow afternoon, same time. Join us then.
Yeah.
See you then.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone, namaste.
See you.